Greetings shippers and welcome to another episode of Fanversations. This time I'm joined by Aussie Nerd, haver of his own podcast, a YouTube channel, and many opinions. We sat down to talk about My Little Pony and many other things. It was a good and fascinating time. So if you're interested in hearing more about this fandom from someone involved in it, or who at least was involved in it, then stay tuned. I will have all of Daniel's links to everything down below, so look out for that. If you're interested in getting involved in one of these Fanversations, then please hit me up. You can email me at shippersguide-to-the-galaxy, you can message me on Twitter or Instagram, and of course, if you're really keen to get to the top of the queue, then please consider Patreon, as patrons do indeed get first dibs. And now, without further ado, let's get to the Fanversation.
Hi!
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good. Busy, but good. Yeah, sorry
That's
about that. I reread the email and everything this morning because I wanted to remember what all the talking points I wanted to cover and everything were. And I just skimmed to the first time. And so I was like, yeah, I got this. I've got everything already. And I was like, wait.
Something's gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But it's fine. It's fine. I'm adaptable. I don't have a baby anymore. I put my podcast off for like a couple of months, because my friend's like, I can't do it because I have to babysit for like months, and I'm like, you. The babies are adorable when it's not 1:40 in the morning.
Exactly. When they're sleeping, they're great. So.
When she's hanging out, I'm watching cartoons, terrible cartoons.
What are you watching?
We were watching Dora the Explorer.
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, everything about this show sucks. I hate it so much.
They give such a long pause for the answers that you're just yelling.
Which is so great because I just whispered to Christy some just awful, terrible jokes. and I'm like, and she's like, don't. She might be able to hear you.
No, my husband and I make awful jokes in some of the kids' programming too, because it's the only way to survive some of it, because it's so inane that it's like, okay, I need to do something, or I'm just going to go mad watching this.
But there are good ones out there. There's Paw Patrol. I love Paw Patrol. Paw Patrol's cute.
I haven't tried that one yet. It's on Netflix, and I've heard good things, but I have yet to venture.
It's adorable, and if you are like, oh, God, stand Peppa Pig, then watch Paw Patrol. There's Bear in the Big Blue House.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of good kids shows. You don't have to watch trash.
Greetings, shippers. It's Sasha here with...
I'm Daniel, the Aussie Nerd. I have a podcast called the Aussie Nerds Podcast because I am super creative.
So you reached out to me because you wanted to talk about My Little Pony. And I was super stoked because I haven't had a chance to talk about it on my channel yet, which is too bad because there is a lot to talk about. So I guess the first thing I want to get into is, how did you get into the fandom?
Well, I first listened to the soundtrack because I'm like, well, it's a kids show and I don't really watch kids shows anymore. But I'll listen to music because music's kind of cool and there's loads of remixes and stuff. So the fandom got me in instead of the show, and then I just watched the show to be a part of the fandom. You ever done that?
Sometimes. Like, sometimes I am drawn into... I'm also a big music person, and I really like looking at fan mixes, so I will often go and just look through fan mixes for different characters or things, and sometimes I'll find something that I'm not familiar with and be like, well, now I need to watch this, because if the music is this good, it has to be good.
I like My Little Pony for the same reason I like Harry Potter. Not the story itself, but the world building. It is so huge, and magic is always interesting when it comes to writing things.
No, like, there's lots of room to play with the world that I don't think people who haven't watched it realize, because it does get dismissed a lot of like, yeah, it's a kid's show, and it is, but there is a lot to it that it has lots of very good, warm-hearted messages, and I can get behind it. It's a good watch. So
I think that there are a lot of things in the story that are for little kids, like, but it's really cute, and all the characters are nice, and it's open to its fandom, which I think appeals to a lot of people.
I think that it's definitely a fandom that has a negative reputation that's largely been piggybacked upon by the mainstream and how they report upon it, because they very much latched on to
Fox News.
yeah, like they very much latched on to the idea that all the adults who liked it must be strange or fetishizing it in some way, and that very much became the perpetuation of all people who were fans of it who were older. So how do you feel about the negative reputation that the fandom has at times?
Well, there's weird shit on all fandom. I mean, Rule 34 exists for a reason.
It does.
But I think the real reason that people are weirded out about it is because adult males and 5-year-old girls are just so separate. Because with like anime and superheroes, you can see a crossover, but when it's this big, people want to find excuses for it instead of watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's died down a lot, because it used to be everywhere, but it's just, like, my favorite part was you had the, like, this is what's happening, holy crap, hide your children, everything's gone wrong. Oh, God, woe is me. And now people are doing just puff pieces about it, and my favorite one was there was this guy who had to do a report on bronies, it was beautiful, because the amount of I do not want to be here that he was in, I was in his voice, I'm like, it was gorgeous.
So, getting into the fandom then, did you find that that aspect of it was relatively small and easy to avoid? Like, what was your experience with it?
Well, if you go onto DeviantArt, you really should have the safety filters on. But
Yeah.
other than that, you're pretty safe. And have you heard of the Brony documentary?
I have, yes.
Yeah, that covers it. You have the artists and the musicians and the fanfic writers, and you can find what you want to find, but you can avoid what you want to avoid, and it's just a tiny version of a huge thing.
Speaking of the fanfic writers and all that, shipping is huge.
Oh my God!
In My Little Pony.
Yes. Name two characters, any two characters. There is fan art and fan fiction for them.
For all of them.
You have the Cutie Mark Crusaders, who are the little children that are like, I want to find my Cutie Mark. When the Cutie Mark, I have to explain what a Cutie Mark is. Cutie Mark is you find a special talent and then magic butt tattoo.
Yes.
Nailed it. That's pretty much it. And so they went through the series trying to find their Cutie Marks, and people ship them, and you have the main 6 girls who are learning about friendship and then teaching them about friendship. It's a whole thing. And all of them is being shipped together, just in different pairings. Like you have Twilight, who's the main character, and she's a bookworm, so she gets paired with Pinkie Pie a lot. And Pinkie Pie, because she's the party girl, and she always throws tons of parties. And then you have Rainbow Dash and Applejack, because they're the most boyish. So they're like, oh, cool, they're gay because they're jocks and hard workers or whatever. And then Applejack and Rarity, who's the fashion designer, got shipped together because you have the hardworking farmer and the fashion designer, and basically there are links. And that's only with the main 6. You also have the fan 6, which is just all these side characters that got shipped together. And one of them is hours. We could talk about for hours.
No, it's really fascinating because it's become one of those fandoms where like a Buffy or something where you just have pretty much every pairing you can conceive, somebody is writing it, which I think makes the fandom a lot of fun for those who are in it for that aspect, because it's not one of those ones where sometimes you have that ship you love and you go and this nobody, crickets, and the sad violin music starts to play as you start looking for the pairing that nobody else ships. But when you're like, are you big into looking at the shipping aspect of the fiction or what?
Oh yeah, I didn't want to do this video when I was massively into the show. I wanted to wait until I was outside it a little so that I could be more objective. But I still have the Doctor Who's T-shirt, which is it's canon that guy, that pony, is like hundreds of years old, is involved in time travel, and is British. And I'm like, you are great. Episode 100 is just delightful. Because they're like, okay, so we've been ignoring it up to this point aside from some Easter eggs, but here is everything that you want. Enjoy. And I did.
So what do you feel? Because like that when that episode came out, a lot of people felt that it was pandering. So do you felt?
Oh yeah, they had in the Comic-Con where they screened it, they had a toy panda on screen on the table. It's 100% pandering. Who cares? Pandering's great.
I think some people care. I know that there are people who are very
well. If it was throughout the entire show. If it was throughout the entire show and it was just pandering all the time, then that would be a problem because I want good stories and good characters. But for one episode, to celebrate 100 episodes, just go nuts.
And it was a very nice nod to the fans, because a lot of times in fandom it's hard to feel listened to, especially in a fandom that is so vast. So it's always really fun to have something like that is presented in such a way too, because lots of times when it comes to presenting these kind of Easter eggs or fun things for fans, striking the right tone can be very difficult. And I'm not sure if the fact that it was an animated series helped it in this regard just because of that, but it just seemed to be very well presented in general.
It definitely helped with background Easter eggs because you had artists that were just like, do you know what would be funny if I did this and just put this in the background? Which is the fandom name because bros and ponies, it's a pun. But I sounded patronizing and I meant it. But like, for example, one of the ponies is named Lyra because she plays an instrument. Is the instrument called a lyre?
I think it's a lyre. Like, yeah.
Lyre? Yeah,
I think so.
It's a lyre, and she's named Lyra. Get it? Because puns. But she was sitting with her legs down like a human, and then the fandom is like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? It must mean something. She's obsessed with humans. She knows that humans are real. And so they just made that a thing, and and I'm like, yes, of course, go for it. I love reading this crap. It's great.
So what do you attribute all of these, fan theories and stuff within this fandom to? Like, when you started, did you start coming up with fan theories and all that stuff as well, watching it, or what?
I started when it was in season 3, so all this stuff sort of just existed, and I was just like, I'm on board, this is all great. And I think it's because it's magic. So you can be like, but magic though, and then just accept anything you want and then dismiss the rest. There are rules for when you create original characters, and the rules are they can't be overpowered and alicorns are out because they're like gods. And then they started introducing more and more alicorns. And then people started being off board with that because they're like, no, you introduced these two as the gods of the world, and you have Twilight, who is being taught by a god, so she can be an alicorn, so that's cool. But you got just these others, and just no.
Mm-hmm.
So people have, like, with magic and lore, they have different things that they care about. Like, I want the world to be like this, therefore it should be like this. Which I get. What do you think?
I think there's definitely always a room for fan theories and making the world as you want, fanon wise. I always find that the only problem is when it turns around and the expectation is that the fanon be made canon when the creators have their own ideas of where the show is going to go. Like, there's always that divide, and the creators have the right to take or not take what they want of people's ideas for their own vision. And sometimes it might not make sense, but then I also feel that sometimes there is the danger with a fandom like My Little Pony where there is a heavy adult element that sometimes people forget that it is a show geared towards younger people. I've seen that happen not only in this fandom but in some other ones as well, lots of Disney works and the like, where people start expecting stuff that might be a bit not in line with or above the level of the intended demographic, which is certainly a lot younger, because it's always important to remember that at the end of the day, that they're really aiming to sell toys to some very little girls. So, for the most part.
Yeah. And you can tell, and that's a thing that that our fandom has just sort of accepted. It's like, I get it. You got to sell the toys. Got to have the toys with the toy things. But when Pinkie Pie flies in a helicopter to commentate on a race that's happening, then you're like, okay, you did that because toys. But I think when it started affecting the actual plot, that's when fans stopped being on board. Like, they've introduced 2 new alicorns. One who was the Princess of Love, and you got the Princess Friendship, Princess Sun and Moon, all this other stuff. But when she was introduced, people were like, oh, okay, fine, but no more. And then Twilight became Princess, and I'm like, well, we get it. It was part of her arc. But then they introduced, and this is when I became off board, they introduced a baby that was an alicorn, and I'm like, there's no reason for that to exist. Why?
Except for all the cute toys you can sell.
Oh yeah, buy it now. Only $9.99.99.
It's so important for those types of shows to keep that revenue stream going, though. Otherwise, you end up in the Young Justice situation, where your show gets canceled and it takes years to get it back on.
Because no one buys the toys, because it's all just adults watching it.
Exactly.
It's why demographics are so important.
It is. You need to pay attention, like, hopefully course correct. But with Young Justice, they couldn't, because they already had the funding, and then they were supposed to sell a certain amount and then didn't. So they didn't get more funding for the next season. But it's like, well, you would hope that at some point someone could course correct and be like, hey, we have a lot of young women. Maybe we should adjust how we're marketing this. But yeah.
They already paid for the marketing.
Exactly. It's too late. It's done.
And, but the reason that I think My Little Pony works is even though it's targeted to little girls, the world is so big that you have darker fan fictions. You have grimdark and sad fics, but you also have romantic fics, which I like it when romance is a part of a fanfic, but not the main point of fanfic. That's just my taste, though. Mm-hmm. There are some good ones written there. I'm sure I haven't read them.
So what are some of your favorite ships and why?
Ships, I'm going to say Doctor and Derpy, because you got Doctor Who's and Derpy Who's, and it's just coincidence because fans aren't creative. But you have the Doctor and Derpy Hooves, and they are companions to me. And there is 2 series about Doctor Who's that I listen to, which is Doctor Who's Adventures, which has the Doctor and Twilight. They do that, and there's the Doctor and Derpy. But the Doctor and Derpy is the ship. Like, when you think ship, this is the first one that comes up because of that. And I don't like the ships with the main 6 that much.
Why
My
not?
favorite well, because I want them to be friends, because friendship is magic and
Yes.
stuff. But there are good ship stories out there, and I think my favorite would be Applejack and Rarity, because they're just so different.
The
And
opposites, yeah.
yeah, and because they're so different, you have the culture clash and stuff. I like ships when ships don't have to be part of canon for me. They just have to make good stories. So if the ship is in a good story, I like the ship automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the ship can make good stories, I like the ship, because I'm like, I want to write good stories, but I can't write. But I want to. I can't. And then to motivate me to write fan fiction, I just read terrible garbage fan fiction, and I'm like, you put that out there. I should put mine out there.
So have you written any and just not posted it, or?
I've written some and posted it.
Mm.
I'm not going to tell you my username. It's not what you think. Because it's just always terrible. I look back at it, I'm like, oh no. Like, I wrote a Danny Phantom fanfic like 10 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was longer than that. And it was, oh my God. I read it the other day, and I'm like, oh, this is cute. I might publish it. And then I'm like, nope, never going to publish it. Gone to delete it. And then I have, and it's gone forever.
I have some some Star Trek ones that are still out there somewhere on fanfiction.net that I just never finished and never will, and they're atrocious.
Yeah.
No one will ever find them, so it's fine. I don't think anyone's hanging for an update.
But I'm glad that there are people like you that print out the thing, and you're like, I can't do this. I can't write it. I don't like it. And then someone's like, but I need to know. Next chapter. Oh my God. That's why I only read fan fictions that are labeled complete. If something's in progress, I cannot read it, because I'm like, you might stop.
I will torture myself and read them. And there are works in progress that have been incomplete for years, and I know the person is never coming back, and I will still go and reread them from the start and just get to that point where it ended and be like, oh man, why did I do this to myself? Oh.
That is a big problem that I have as well. Like, I will start a story and then just not finish it, because I'm just like, I can't. I want to write something else. That's why I only write like short stories.
That's how I got into video editing, because I used to want to be an author, and I swear I've written about 3 novels halfway, and then gotten to the halfway point and been like, this is the worst thing of life. I want to rewrite the entire thing. And it was just so frustrating that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do something that I can finish, look at, and be happy with, and that is editing, and I'm going to put these to the side for now.
It's one of the things I do on my YouTube channel when I do my YouTube videos, which isn't that often because I focus on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did was I wrote pitches for movies, which is what I completely stole the idea from Sans Pants Radio. Because I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, I should do that. And then I did, and it was great, because I got to write my fan fiction and then just not focus on how to develop it.
No, I always toy with the idea. Like, sometimes I don't have time to make fan vids anymore, but I hear a song or something and it triggers the idea for what the fan vid would be. And I'm like, I should just tell people and maybe somebody will make it for me, and that would be fantastic.
That'd be great. Just go on Reddit and be like, hey, this will work. And then someone will do it, and then you'll be like, but that's not what I had envisioned. And then you would have to do it yourself anyway.
Exactly. Let's write a huge comment. Do it again. Again, but better. Yeah.
Another thing that I think works for My Little Pony fan fiction is that the creators just write their own fan fiction. Like, there's an episode where Spike has a comic, and they go into the comic and then just do superhero stuff. And I'm like, someone had that idea. That was great. It's like the holodeck episodes from Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Or Next Generation, where they're just like, I want to have them, but Sherlock Holmes.
I love those episodes so much. There are so few ones that really stand up to scrutiny, but I love them all.
there was 2 episodes involving Moriarty on the holodeck, where he came to life and was sentient, and I'm like, this is great. How do you create life with... And then someone said, how does a computer create life just because they want something to be matched data? And can they do that again? And I'm like, shut up! I love it.
My favorite holodeck episode was the one with Barclay, where he had recreated the crew, but how he wanted them was essentially living out his real life fanfic of if the crew were all those period piece people who all treated him super nice and awesome. And I was like, I love this.
And then they find out.
It's like, it's hilarious, but B, I think that would be a real problem. Like, if you could just go and create whatever you wanted, that would be a legit problem.
And they find out the ending, because the ending starts his development throughout the series, and the ending is he's saying goodbye to the crew on the bridge, and then he goes and says end simulation, and so he's saying goodbye to what he used to do. Which is, it's great. It feels like it'd be a commentary on fan fiction itself.
It feels like it, although I've never agreed with the idea that fan fiction is something one has to leave behind them. I firmly believe it's something that one can keep enjoying.
If you're writing fan fiction about your co-workers, you really should stop.
But about real people, and they definitely can never find that out, and that's really something that feels almost more like a therapeutic journal that you're trying to work through some issues more so than a fanfic. Although I do know I've gotten some comments from people on my channel who do say that they write fan fiction about like their friends and people that they want to be together in their school. And I'm always like, real person stuff for me is always this nebulous area of if they don't like it, you really gotta stop and respect their wishes because they're real people.
Or at least don't show it to them.
Don't show it to them ever.
Like Markiplier and PewDiePie. You did a video on that. And
Septiplier. Him and Jacksepticeye,
don't ever show it to them. Ever.
The fact that people send it to them directly, I don't know if that is the thing that gets me, or the tin hatting. The tin hat theories that people think that they are actually secretly together, and it's a big giant conspiracy that they're hiding from us all, and I'm just like...
Oh, tin hat theories don't matter because it's all part of fan fiction. Like, but what if though? But just don't show it to them.
But speaking of the My Little Pony like fiction, and it just got me thinking about like the kids at school and stuff like that. I know that there are people who just in general, not even My Little Pony, feel that adults need to not be in any fandom geared towards children. So Gravity Falls, Young Justice, like Paranorman, they're just like, get out. How do you feel about that mentality?
No, sports and beer all the way. So these tiny colourful horses. Just always sport, run in the gym and stuff. Ugh. My main problem with that is that, well, what am I supposed to like? If not this, then what?
Things. Oh no.
Like, do we move it to all cartoons? So all cartoons are bad, but what about Death Note and those other animes that are made specifically for adults? Are they not allowed? And if that's true, then what about girls? Are girls not allowed to like sports or whatever? It's all a whole thing.
It's like, I can understand the concern. I know that some people are coming from a good place, and their concern is, their kid logs on to fanfiction.net, lies and says they're 18 or however old you have to be to get on the account these days.
If you're going to fanfiction.net and you're lying about being 18, you want to find it. You're like, I know that this exists, and I want to find this specific thing. That's on you.
I don't... At least I hope that when people are writing whatever they're writing, if it's like smut or whatever, that they're not purposely setting it out. They're like, yes, I do indeed hope that some young child finds this. It's like, no. You're just writing it and you're tagging it and you're putting it in its place. And that's what it is. And do you feel, for My Little Pony, do you feel that there is a significant like teen fandom, or do you feel that the divide is very much adult to kid? Or
it's been going on for 7 seasons, maybe 8 years now. So you have kids that were 7 when it started. They're now 14 or 15, and they still like the show. So there's that. And then you have the teens that saw it when they were teenagers, and they're now 7 years old. So the show has evolved with its audience,
Mm-hmm.
And it's still geared toward being directed to like 4 or 5 year olds. It's directed to 8 year olds now.
Mm-hmm.
There's loads of teens. I think, according to a survey that I read, it's people in their 20s, early 20s, so like mid-teens, early 20s. There's that. When it comes to the adult fandom, it's between that ages, between like 15 and 25. Like, I stopped watching it because I got bored by the show, and they basically, it's like we set up all these things, and we're just gonna wrap them all up. Like, Rarity was set up to start her own boutique and her own fashion line, and she's done that. The Cutie Mark Crusaders have their Cutie Marks. Rainbow Dash is part of the Wonderbolts, which are her sports team. And she's like, yeah, I'm part of Wonderbolts, kind of. And I'm like, good, kind of. And you have that, and then episode 100 is like, okay, so all the main characters are done. Twilight's a princess now, so because she's finished her lessons, and everything's wrapped up. Applejack is still working on the farm, but she didn't want to not work on the farm, so she's good.
Mm-hmm.
And Pinkie Pie's happy, so there's that. So all the characters that were set up with arcs have completed their arcs, and all the side characters got confirmed to just be what we thought they were in episode 100. So there wasn't anything left for them to do. Mm-hmm. And I thought, and I was wrong, because obviously they wouldn't do this because all that money. But I thought that they would end the show with the movie.
So you feel it's one of those shows now that's just kind of going for the sake of going?
Yes, definitely. They should have. I thought that they should have ended it at the end of season 3 because Twilight had completed her arc. But then they're like, no, we're going to make her teach about friendship now that she's finished learning about friendship. And I'm like, okay, that's cute. And then that worked. And now everything's wrapped up, and they're like, okay, what's left? Literally nothing. And that's why I stopped watching and started reading fan fiction, because there's loads of fan fiction that are just great, and they tell more interesting stories than the show does.
So were you into fan fiction more while you were watching it, or now more that you're done? Like, now that you're done?
I was into that specific fan fiction when I was watching it. I was like, I want to know what they're doing. But I still read it. My favorite one is Fallout Equestria, where it's not just a crossover between Fallout, the video game, and Equestria, but literally what would happen if the events in Fallout happened in Equestria.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so like there's mega spells, which are just spells that are bombs, and the main 6 became the leaders, and it follows Little Pip, who has, they have Pip Bucks, and it is great. And you have all this stuff. Derpy is there. Derpy's a zombie.
Nice.
Or ghoul. And I'm like, solid. And so I read that, and that is just an amazing story. I'd buy that as a book, and I tried to, but I sold out. Damn it.
I think it's so awesome, the creative work that people are doing in the fandom. It's so much more than people expect, I think, when they think of My Little Pony fandom. They just think, I don't know if they just think along the lines of the show, or they jump automatically to, like, you know, the more stuff portrayed by the media or whatever, but there's so much actual really intriguing work. And it's like you said, there is a huge world there to build upon. So now, like you said, that you're a bit more out of the fandom, so how involved are you in it really now?
Not really that much. I still read some of the fan fictions, but I don't go onto the forums anymore. When I stopped watching the show, everyone moved on from where I was at. And unless I could, and I wanted to catch up. I told you this, but I wanted to catch up and watch the latest season.
Yes.
But I watched RuPaul Drag Race instead, and everything is fine.
No, it was a good decision.
not only is RuPaul Drag Race an amazing show that I want to binge watch, but there's like 8 seasons, so I'm like, do I really want to spend a week watching it? No, I'm like, yes, I do.
I did that for Skin Wars, but thankfully there were only 3 seasons of that, so it didn't take too long.
Another thing that I like with being out of fanfiction, but being out of the fandom, sorta, and then just reading fanfiction on occasion, is that I can now look at it more objectively, which is hard because a lot of the fanfiction is garbage. But sometimes, very rarely, you get something like this.
I love that that's so nice and hardbound. It looks so good.
It's hardbound. It's fanfiction. It's like a gazillion pages. Basically, this is Parsons. There's a cult of ponies that were infected by Nightmare Moon, and Nightmare Moon was the first villain, and Nightmare Moon was basically a dark energy being fueled by jealousy and rage from Princess Luna. And so she got sent to the moon for 1,000 years, and when she came back, she got cured because of magic rainbow friendship power, which is technical term for the elements of harmony. And so, basically, this story posits: what if the dark energy was still there, infected a bunch of ponies, and then they wanted to bring Nightmare Moon back, separate from Luna. Then they did, but they got interrupted, so she's now a foal. And so it's a whole nature versus nurture thing. Twilight's raising her. She has to make, like, pretty glasses. And I'm like, everything about this is adorable.
That's really cool. No, that's neat.
And it's so well written as well. Have you ever found fan fiction that you just want to be a book?
Yeah, definitely. There are rare occasions when sometimes they are, like in the Destiel fandom. That's happened a couple of times. I've actually found it for sale on Goodreads or something like that. But there are definitely some where I'm like, I would pay for this and hope that people would write more. I think that there's that weird world that's kind of interesting in its legality of people who are selling fan fiction and that kind of thing. But I had another Fanversations recently where I was talking with someone who's doing a literary degree, and in the academic world, they hate fan fiction so much. They really do. And so I almost wonder if this is part of it, because especially as it enters the marketplace and the commerce of it, it adds an extra legitimacy to it in a real world sense outside of the fandom itself, which I just find that whole process completely fascinating, because obviously when people are in fandom, they feel that the fan fiction has value, but once you place it outside of it and people are actually purchasing it, then other people can see that as well, and that's just a very fascinating process.
I think that according to an official statement by someone who's selling this stuff, the official statement is, we cannot publish this outside of cons. We can publish enough to sell at cons, and if we have stuff left over, then we can sell it online, but we can't publish it all the time. Like, that one I got came out, but when I got it, it was 3 years old, and there was 50 of them. And they'd sold most at the con. It's really interesting, and part of the thing that they did for that was they're like, okay, adults are watching our show, whatever, that's weird, but they also have money, so what can we do? And so what they did was they went to a site that 3D prints things, and they're like, don't 3D print things, we're not going to allow that to happen, right? But if you want to buy well-crafted 3D printed things, we have our own stuff. Come here. And you don't have to buy the shitty toys with the bad hair. You can buy this. It's why I like these things so much. The Funko figures are just so well crafted. They don't have the brush my hair, I'm a little princess, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, brush my not very good, usually very fake plastic, gonna fall out, maybe melt if you leave it too close to heat hair.
It's your fault for putting it in the microwave.
I wonder if for some people there's a bit of a nostalgia factor because I remember My Little
Oh
Pony
yeah.
from when I was a kid. It's very different, but I remember it from when I was little, and I have to say this one is much better than that
I certainly hope so.
one.
I know my mum saw I think it was a towel with the old figures for the old character designs, and
Yeah.
she's like, ugh. And she texted me and she's like, "Are you really into this?" And I'm like, "No, they're a lot better." Which is just full of awkward conversations. Um, One of the things that is still very popular and they can't do anything about, I think, maybe they could, maybe they don't want to, is the art. There's loads of
Yeah.
artists doing
Yes.
custom art, and I'm like, I have characters, draw them for me. Draw them!
No, I love it. The fan art, I'm not exactly sure how they operate around fan art because there's this interesting thing where it's like it's part promotion, it's part infringement. It's like there's just it's very interesting, and I'm wondering how they're going to bridge these worlds eventually because fandom just seems to be getting larger and larger, and it seems like the mainstream is having to take more and more note of it, especially on the production and creative side, as it becomes easier and easier for these things to be passed back and forth. So I'm very interested in how all of this evolves.
I know that the one thing that Hasbro or DHX or whatever has been doing is taking down videos off YouTube,
Mm.
which is just sucks so hard because I get it when you're just taking clips from the show and then having music play in music videos or parodying music videos or PMVs because
Yes.
again, Bronies are great with writing fans, but titling is just not good. But like, I get that, but there's also animation that gets taken down. Like, there was this great video called Lullaby for a Princess, which was about Celestia singing to Luna when she was still on the moon. And I'm like, everything about this is great. Oh my God, where's it gone? And then someone, I think it was a channel called Anthony C, he said he looked into someone's channel. I love Kim Possible a lot, which frankly doesn't talk about Kim Possible enough, stuck on these pony things. But she did that, and she did a video which was well animated, and it was a fan video for John Delancey because she's like, I love John Delancey and
Yeah.
Discord and Q. They're the same character. Everything's great. So she did a video on that, and then she got a cease and desist letter, but it wasn't from DHX or Hasbro. It was from someone else. And so Anthony C is like, hang on, let me look into this. So instead of just accepting the cease and desist letter, he looked into the entire copyright thing, the entire thing, and he's like, there's nothing that says that you can't do this. So put it back up. And she did. And then they did nothing about it, and it was great. Anthony C, my hero.
No, some companies get very overzealous with their claiming, and I don't fully understand it. And because again, unless the person is re-uploading the entire thing and then sticking some ads on it and being like, "Pay me," then I don't really see the problem. Because really, you can, especially with the music videos and stuff these days, all they do is they just claim the music and then they stick the iTunes or whatever it is on it to where you can buy it, and then everybody goes on with their lives. So I don't really see the need for taking it down. That just seems a bit excessive, you know?
I think that's stopped now because it used to be because when the Brony fandom was bigger a few years ago when the show was still good. And so there was loads of videos, so they're just like, I don't know what to do about this. But then I think they found a middle ground where if you don't use clips from the show or actual songs and you do your own covers or you do your own animation, then you can keep it up. Because they haven't been taking down any videos anymore.
That's good. I still feel that's too intense though, because I'm a big fan vid person. I used to make all those fan vids with the clips and stuff, and I'm like, just leave it up. If it really bothers you, just claim it, take your profits, and go home. Because
But
if you're making a fan vid, you most likely know you're not going to get anything off of
yeah,
it.
but the thing is, and I was watching a video on this, and it had
Mm.
someone who was in copyright law, I think, and they said that if we allow fan videos that are harmless to be on YouTube, and then someone makes an actual thing using our characters, then makes profit from it, then we can't claim that one as well, because they'll just say you didn't claim this, so weren't fighting for your copyright or your trademark. So that's a grey area that they're in, because they don't want to, because it gets them exposure. But if they stop and they don't do it, then if someone actually just writes a book using these characters, then they can't claim copyright on it.
I don't know. I find it interesting because lots of the fandoms that I've been a part of is because Warner Brothers is an excessive claimant. They claim
Oh
anything.
yeah,
Like did Batman show up? It's claimed. And so but they just claim it and that's it. Because I know that I think it depends on the fandom and how big it is, like you said, and how much work they're producing. Like Star Trek and CBS has gotten very intense on their claiming
oh
and how
yeah.
much you
Did
can
you hear what
produce.
they did for the fan film? So
Yeah.
there's a big fan film that was coming out, and they said, you can't use this. It can't be any longer than this. And this was the thing that pissed a lot of people off. They said that you can't make custom costumes and props. You have to
Yeah.
use the official props. And they're like, that is not copyright. That's just being greedy, and we're not going to do that. So they're fighting that in court. I think. I think that's still going on.
I think it is. And I think they should because especially with a fandom like Star Trek, I'm like, fans keep this show alive. This show has such huge lulls in between when it airs and when it's not airing and stuff is happening. But these passionate people creating their projects of their own original stories really help maintain that interest in the downtime. They really do. And everybody still goes and watches it. People buy the stupid extra service you need to have to watch Discovery. They do.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gotten into the show if it wasn't for all the fandom. If it was just a show on TV, I'd be like, well, I don't even know. I don't think I'd even be able to see it. And the problem is that I'm in Australia. For now, the problem is that the show doesn't air here. Well, not often. And I have to wait until the season's done to watch on Netflix. It airs on Boomerang or Cartoon Network, I forget which. And they air it like 2 seasons behind. I think they're on season 4 now.
Mm.
It's just awful. So I had to watch it online to see it. So I think the biggest thing to avoid piracy and get your profits is to let us see it.
Yeah, I know there's all those negotiations that they have to get for the rights and all of that, but I think it also especially increases piracy when you know that other places have the whole thing. Because that happens
Yeah.
with Canada and the States all the time, because the States just has everything. And up here in Canada, we're like just a few feet away, and we don't have any of these things. Like nothing.
On a show that I watched called the John Campier Show, because his name's John Campier and he also sucks at names. He was talking about Coco and how in a country or a place that this guy was at, the theaters just boycotted showing Coco because of profit things, and he just pirated it. And he was saying, if you want them to stop pirating, show them the movie. Make sure that you do it. And I don't know what will happen. I don't know what will happen with streaming, because streaming was huge. Because everyone's like, we got to stop pirating. How do we stop people pirating? Do we make harsher punishments or whatever? And they're like, no, we're Netflix. We know what to do. And one thing I read, and I love it, is that they said, what's the top pirated thing? And then they just bought it. And they're like, hey, this thing that you're pirating? Come here and watch it. It's legal. I was listening to your Fanversation, and you were talking about how Netflix and other streaming services uh, it's getting too crowded.
Yeah, there's a lot more of them than they used to be.
I think that there's something called My Movies or Movies Anywhere, which is in the US and nowhere else. And I'm like, but what it's doing is that you can basically buy movies from any site, like YouTube and iTunes and stuff, and it'll just all be in that library. And I think there needs to be a similar thing for streaming.
Yeah, I've heard about that because I heard about that program. I was like, oh, that sounds actually pretty useful and great. And just it was like one app that put everything you wanted into one space. And of course, no, we don't have it up here. No, you need to get Crave, the world's worst streaming service that I only have for Star Trek Discovery.
Oh yeah, that was in. I thought that they put that on like Discovery Go in America and then Netflix everywhere else. Because it's on Netflix here.
No, in Canada, you have to get it on a specific Canadian streaming service called Crave that has the rights to it. So it's separate from Netflix. So I now have Netflix and Crave so that I can watch Star Trek.
That's fun. Is it worth
it's okay.
it?
Yes, to see it. Yes, to see it, but it's very much a Star Trek for this era. I mean, they're all for their era. Like, when you go back and watch them, they are all very clearly of their time. And this one is very clearly of our time, but there are some trends that I
hate our time. That's why I watch Star Trek.
Yeah, I know, right? So it's like there are some trends in shows now, like the excessively heavy serialization that is a bit odd for me in Trek. So it's basically like you're watching the second half of DS9 Season 7, where it was all war all the time, but for the entire show. So
oh dear, I stopped watching DS9 even though I was really into it because I'm like, it's because I'm on a fan site and I probably shouldn't have been on there, but I was on a fan page and I'm like, hey, I'm binge watching DS9. No spoilers, but I'm really excited. And then someone's like, this person dies, and I'm like, you. This is terrible. I hate everyone. I blocked you. I blocked that guy, and I was like, "Oh, this is the worst." And I stopped watching it because I'm like, "No, that's my favorite character."
I watched it all the way through because it's my favorite one. Was it?
Yeah, it was. God, I hate you. I hate everyone. I hate everything. This conversation is over.
I know. In all fairness, the character that they replaced her with, I really liked. But I think for having only one season to develop an entire character, they did a good job. They tried.
It was only one season? She died in like the last season?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. I'll go back to it then. We're talking about ponies, weren't we?
We were. That's how these Fanversations always go. They always start one place and end up...
And then they end up on Star Trek.
Which is great, because you know what? That never happens on my channel itself, so it's very nice.
It's very fun. And, yeah, My Little Pony, it's a cute show. You should watch it, or don't. I don't care. But you should at least respect where people are coming from. I mean, all fandom's weird from the outside.
It is. No, every single fandom, if you sit down and start trying to explain it to a person, you just look like a person who they would say, like, has no life and is just obsessed. It's like, no, there's more to it, and there's more layers, and it's deeper than that. And I always felt really bad for the My Little Pony fandom, because I read fandom articles all the time, and I know that they're about maybe 25% accurate at best, half of the time.
It's worse with fairies. It's worse with fairies. Because if we want to talk about how the mainstream media covers things. You have the ponies, which is like, oh, this is weird. Look at this weird thing. And then you have furries, which is like, what the hell is going on?
When I did my video on furries, I was just stunned by how much of the research was just me finding people who are like, it's gross, don't look at it, it's gross, 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 like sick, deviant. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like these poor fans, like this poor community.
Oh, no. It's hot. All we want is cute art.
And I'm just like, there's so many fun, like anthropomorphic, stuff that I really enjoy, and I can see why some people would be really into that. And so It's
There's
not.
there's Disney. Disney does the Zootopia thing, and
Yeah.
everyone's like, I love these characters. They're adorable, but I'm not a furry. Don't back off. Fuck off.
It's got that very, like a lot of the brony stuff, it's got that very deviant sexual thing that people just project onto it. And if you're just talking to a casual
You're cut off
person,
there.
yeah, like that's what people just, end up thinking. I
Oh,
don't blame them though, because most people get their
I don't
information
know.
about subcultures from just like random mainstream articles that happen to cross their dash. Like that Tumblr top 10 that made it into the New York Times.
Why?
That
Why would
was
they ever go to Tumblr? The New York Times, for God's
It
sake.
was, and the title of the article was "What Your Fandom Says About You." And then as soon as I saw it was the list from Fandometrics Tumblr, I was like, "Oh no, oh no!" I know, and the thing was, they cherry picked the list. So, because I was actually going to do a whole video on this article because they cherry picked the list. They took out all of the RPF ships. They didn't exist. They were gone. They picked Supercorp, Clance, and one other one. And then they went on to write this article about how fandom was really secretly this huge political movement moving for more representation. I was like, sometimes, but you really cherry picked the hell out of that list and ignored that G Kook was like number 4. No, it was
Oh,
interesting. Although my favorite was the IO9 article that was surprised that Voltron had a big enough fandom to have ships. That was the best article of all time.
I love that. That's great. It's like, wait, this show? Really? Another thing that the Tiny Horse show
Yes.
does is crossovers,
Mm,
official and unofficial. Well,
yes.
nothing's official really, but official crossovers is like with Doctor Who, because you have the horse that's hundreds of years old, and you have um, and he does time travel, and he's like, no, going through time, that's no, I'm not gonna wait to bring time to you. And I'm like, that is exactly what he would do. That is exactly what he'd do. And the entire thing is framed around this wedding.
Hmm.
And what's great is that the main six fight monsters.
Yeah.
So you have like all these characters that are like, we got to prepare for the wedding. The wedding is great. Everything about this wedding, and then behind them, just here, where
Hmm.
no one cares, six are fighting a bugbear, and they're like, oh, must be a Tuesday. Must be a Tuesday. They're fighting a monster. They should be done by lunch.
I love stuff like that. It's like Gravity Falls. There's a great frame where they're in the forest searching for something, and then there's just Slender Man in the background where no one cares he's in the forest.
There was also Slender Pony. They designed Slender Man as a pony and just put him there, and I'm like, what? Why?
Because
What's
they
the point of
can.
that? I know, and you're a bored animator. You're like,
For all the
this would be fun,
creepypasta fans.
I guess. I don't like I don't like Milo Pony creepypastas because it's all exactly the same thing. I found this last episode. It's really dark. One of the characters gets killed. And kill characters, that's fine. And there's a lot of grimdark stories that kill characters really well, but it's like, you won't believe the episode I found, and I'm like, I don't, because I've read this story before. Creepypastas is just, it's kind of like fan fiction, but very specific and always terrible, unless it's being read on YouTube. In which
No,
case, even if it is pretty bad, then it's
I've read
fine.
some that are pretty good. It's like an urban legends type thing, which I can get behind. And the
Um,
moment we predicted has
oh
arrived.
no! As predicted, interrupted. Goodbye.
I need to go and
What happened?
get dinner and all of that good stuff and free my husband from the baby. So thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. We actually stayed on the ponies for a decent amount, so I'm proud of us.
It was more than I expected, because I get distracted a lot. Also, before we go,
Mhm.
and we have to, because you have dinner, and we predicted this, and everything's great, but before we go, do Harry and Luna, because even though there's not much stuff in canon there, they're just so similar. Okay, 5 minutes on Luna. So, Harry and Luna have similar backgrounds where
Mm-hmm.
they are separate from the world and they have to be a part of it. And while Harry adapts to the world, Luna doesn't. And she is just who she is. And I think there'd be really good fanfic potential if anyone besides me shipped them.
No, they do. No, there's actually a pretty big contingent. I remember from back in the day and still
Show
now.
me leaks.
It
I
would be
need the
fun.
fan.
It'd be a fun video to do. I want to do more Harry Potter ships for sure. It's a great fandom, and I love that it's still so active.
It's the world. My Little
Yes,
Pony, Magic World, Harry Potter, the Magic World. Write your own stories within it.
exactly. Anything that lets you build has great potential for that.
I'm
Oh,
going to show
okay.
you a bunch of links to
Oh,
the pony fanfics that you might like or might not. I don't know you.
yeah. No, link me up. Okay, I'm gonna do it quick. So thank you
Okay.
so much for joining me. It was a lot of fun, and shill your links again for the people.
Okay. Okay, people. I'm the Aussie Nerd on YouTube. There's two channels that I tried to start. Just search Aussie Nerd and find the one with the most videos. And there's my podcast, the Aussie Nerds podcast. Links probably in the description if we remember. And most importantly, be a fan of things and subscribe. Most importantly, subscribe, but also be a fan of things. Who cares? Be a fan of things. Like a thing. I used to get really passionate about movies. I'm like, how could you hate? How could you like this? It's terrible. Now I'm like, cool. You like it? It's great. But most importantly, be kind and also subscribe. Oh, we need more subscribers.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we will definitely do it again about that topic that you sent me before. So, yes.
Yeah,
Enjoy
it'll
the
be
rest of
good.
your day. Thank you so
You
much.
too. Have a
Okay.
nice dinner.
Bye
Bye.
bye. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. Share all of your thoughts on what we talked about down below. What's a fandom that you're involved in that has a bit of a negative rap that you love anyway? Maybe you even think the rep is undeserved. Let me know which fandoms those are down below. As always, all of you who made it to the end, you guys are troopers. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like to let me know that you want me to continue with all of these fanversations, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side. And don't forget to go vote for this upcoming month's monthly video. And finally, as always, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.